Traditionally, when I came to HKU, I did this course a very specific way, emphasizing what is referred to as open science. It was a very technical course that required a lot of statistics and methods, where students did hands-on projects, replications, and extensions. And many of them who worked with me completed entire manuscripts that we submitted to journals, and some of them even made it all the way to publications. So that was a big achievement of things that we were able to do the first 4 or 5 years. The last 2 years, so last year and this year, we've taken a slightly different directions. So put a little bit of that aside and revamped my courses in order to do a little bit more of what I'm going to present to you today. And this came from my own journey of having to sit in a lot of quarantines, 6 or 7 quarantines, with myself stuck in a room for 2 or 3 weeks, in order to contemplate whether what it is that I'm doing as an instructor, or what is it that we're doing here at HKU, really has any meaning. What's the purpose of all of this? Especially took a specific turn in the last year with ChatGPT 4 coming out. It's like, at the end, it's like, it can do all the things for us, right? So we used to have to calculate everything in our heads, but then came out a calculator, and then we used the calculator. So what are the real skills that I have to give you? What is it that we're expected to do here? So I don't know what's your take on what education means. What's the purpose of HKU? Why spend 4 years taking a degree with us? But I'll give you my own take, and we can discuss this. So as the first thing that you'd want to know is that everything is recorded. So a lot of the principles of open science that I've had in my courses since I came to HKU, I take all the way to the very extreme, which means that everything that I do, both in my research and in my teaching, is shared publicly. It means that the lectures are not just like on Moodle, but they're also shared on what's called the Open Science Framework. They're also uploaded to YouTube. So if you happen to miss a session, or you want to see the other sessions from previous years, or there's something here that you want to go back to, everything is available for you online. Typically, I focus on what it is that I'm saying, but we're going to have a lot of discussions. I don't want you to be scared about having some of these discussions online. I edit things afterwards if I think something is inappropriate or something we want to take out, and then I will take it out. So things are edited. And in general, it focuses, so I have the microphone so people hear me a lot better. Many times when I record things, you don't hear the students, or sometimes I just skip them. But in general, if you'll go back and see the other lectures from previous years, I think you'll find it convincing that it's of value, not just for you and the other HKU students and future generations, but also perhaps the general public. So I think there's a lot of value when I go back and I listen to some of the lectures from previous years to see what did we talk about in class. I am remembered just how high quality the discussions were with the HKU students. They brought up a lot of things that I did not think about. So in many of these classes, I have a theme, I have a question, I have a problem to present to you, but I don't have solutions. I have a point for discussion, which I want us to come out of, and you can take it in any way, in any direction that you want. And the projects are very much like that. So the projects are not like a multiple choice exam where things are predetermined. There's very little right or wrong. So everything that we do and most of our grading focuses on the journey. I want to see that you're learning. I want to see that you're seeking information, and I want to see that you're being challenged by the problems, that you aim to overcome these challenges, that you're doing something in the process in order to reach some resolution that might be good for you, might not be good for me, might not fit somebody else. But overall, I want to see you go through a journey and achieve something at the end. So a lot of these is about the process rather than whether what you ended up with is right or wrong. And many of the discussions today, we're going to discuss morality. The essence of morality is that we all have different principles of morality. We can discuss whether there is absolute morality or not, but just looking at morality, we have different perspectives, different people see it in different ways, big divides across the world with religions, with politics about how to address certain questions. So I'm opening this up for us to speak freely about what is it that we believe, and I will not judge you for what it is that you bring up in class, and I don't think you need to worry too much about how this will be recorded or open to the world. But if you have any concerns, I want you to feel comfortable. Feel free to tell you if you have any concerns, and I'll address those and make sure that you feel comfortable. So the main point is that for you to feel comfortable with the lectures being recorded. Okay. So 2 things to note: open science and sharing everything means that I share everything that I do, but I also will share everything that you do aside from your grades. So everything that we do here in class is going to be collaborative. So we have somebody with some experience about how we work here. So you will be separated into teams. Typically it's teams of 4, but we'll see like the construction of the class. And there will be a certain theme, something that you will work on together. In order to make sure that you can work together efficiently, effectively, we will help you. There's something called a team contract. There's a process that you need to go through in order to align expectations, to make sure that everybody has a role, that everybody is accountable, that there's no free riding, that everybody can bring in their own voices. So we pre-tested this many times in previous years. So we have some experience with this. I would say 85%, 95% of the times it goes very smoothly. But in the 10, 15% that it doesn't, we come in, we help you, and we make sure that everything flows a little bit better. But everything that we do, everything that you do, will be shared publicly. It will mostly be work on Google Docs, where everybody can see, everybody can edit at the same time. And occasionally, because I'm connected to the community that will work with us, and I will tell you a little bit about that, sometimes I will invite them to come in and have a look at your outputs, perhaps give you some comments and some feedback. So it's not just us sitting here working by ourselves, but perhaps we can connect this to the world. So I post a lot of things on Twitter. There's a big Twitter community which I engage with. So I'll invite them to have a look at what you're doing and tell us if they have something to share. Okay? All right. So everything from previous years, including last year where we did this same theme, is available on the Open Science Framework. So you'll be able to go here and have a look at the slides. Just to, if you have a laptop and you want to download these slides, let me just show you how to access everything that I do. So if you're on the browser, Google, yeah. So if you just like Google my name, Gilad Feldman, and write OSF and teaching, you'll be able to get there. Or mgto.org is my website. So if you go to mgt.org or giladfeldman.org, this is my website. And on my website, there's lots of things that we'll discuss about at the end. The most important thing, 2 most important things in my website is there's this tab called Doing More Good and Doing Good Better. This is the theme of our class now. This is what we call our class. It's called Advanced Social Psychology, but the theme is how do we do more good and how do we do good better, okay? So you can check this out and see what this is about. And I explain why I started to do this. There's also a YouTube video that you can see, but you can also see the course Judgment Decision Making that the student here took with me last year and Advanced Social Psychology. So all the materials are available here and you'll be able to go and see the syllabus and everything else. If you go to teaching, so there's teaching and courses on my website, you'll be able to access everything, including the YouTube channel and the OSF. The OSF is here. So if we click on the OSF, it will open all the teaching materials that I've ever had, including my teaching evaluations. So I think it's very important that you know the good and the bad about me. So you're welcome to browse the teaching evaluations from previous years. I try to be very transparent about things. Some of the things that I do are not for everybody, but I think it's important to be open also about how the professors are being evaluated rather than just how the students are evaluated. So if you want to see the teaching evaluations, they're over here. If you want to see this course, this is Psych 3052. You just click on this one. If you want to see last year, it's a little bit further to down. So if we click on this, Open Science Framework, there's a link to the course syllabus. There's a link to a collaborative course summary, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a second. And then if you go here into the lectures, you'll be able to open the first lecture, and the first lecture is morality. So all the slides and all the videos will be uploaded here. They'll be uploaded to YouTube, and we'll do one Moodle announcement that links to everything in this course. Is it clear about how to find me and what it is that I do and how to find this class? All right. So please do go and check out what we did last year. Many of the discussions in class are going to be similar content, but the exercises I decided I'm going to change a little bit. So we're going to build, instead of you doing exactly the same thing like last year, we're going to build on the foundations of what they did last year in order to do something new and even more innovative or exciting, at least for me, from my perspective. So this is a little bit of what we're trying to do. We're trying to focus on the impact and the effectiveness in leveraging social psychology. So this is the advanced social psychology. We're trying to leverage psychological science in order to do more good and to do good better, in order to address the most urgent challenges of our time. So I think one of the most frustrating things for me, as I was contemplating my existence in my quarantines in Hong Kong, was what can I contribute to the pandemic? What can I do? What is my role as a psychologist? What is my role as a scientist? Is there anything that I do besides writing papers and talking to you in classrooms? Is there any contribution? And I decided that there is a contribution, but it's too indirect and it's too far and it's too small. And I would like to try and increase this kind of contribution, which is why this course came along, where I want to see how, as a social psychologist, how, as an HQ student, we can contribute better in order to address all kinds of challenges like pandemics, like poverty, health, global health, existential risks, and even things like the threat of artificial intelligence, nuclear, and global warming. All right, so this is our public OSF folder. You see how you get there. And then last thing I want to say about this is that you do have a choice. So if you decide after this in the add drop period that you don't want to take this course completely, okay, I will not be offended. There is one thing that is required of you during the add drop period. So you have 2 weeks to think about this. And if after 2 weeks you decide that you want to stick around, I need to make absolutely sure that you know what you're in for, because not only are you committing to being here, I'm also committing to helping you and investing resources in you. So for me, a syllabus is a little bit like a contract where we align expectations. Therefore, there's already a quiz at the first 2 weeks. There's no way of failing this quiz because it's basically next, making sure that you've read things. So confirmation. And sometimes I will ask you, please go at the syllabus and make sure that you understand how this course works. This is to make sure that sometimes people went through the first 2 add drop period weeks and then came to class in the 3rd week without dropping. And then, they, oh, the course is like this, but I don't want to work in teams, this kind of thing. So I just want to make sure that we all understand one another. Therefore, in order to come here at the 3rd week, you will need to complete this quiz. In addition, because we share everything that we do in the classroom, you will get credit for what you do. If we share this with the academic community, if we share this with the world, they need to know that you did this, that you deserve the credit for this. The way that we give credit is through citations. It's by posting this on academic websites and giving you the credit that you deserve. In order to be able to give you the credit that you deserve, I will ask you to open profiles on Open Science Framework, ResearchGate, and other social media for academics and geeks, in order for you to be able to get recognition for that, so that also after you leave HKU, people will be able to find you and tell you something about your work. Okay, so that's all in the quiz. It's called a quiz, but it's just to make sure that we align expectations about the course. In addition, we do everything collaboratively and we do everything openly. I don't really understand why people do summaries on their own, you know, each one on his. I feel like it's much better if we all collaborate and do things together, which is why the course summaries are on a Google Doc, and we try to help one another. So I already took the liberty, you can scan this if you want, to create a Google Doc for you. Wait, I'll just keep this if you want to scan this for a second. You can get there from the OSF and it will be posted on Moodle. But just to show you what that looks like. All right, so now that we went through this, yeah, this is the syllabus. And from the syllabus, there's, oh, this is the wrong one, hold on. Yeah, this is the syllabus and this is our course summary. So I can see many of you here. So you can already see the course summaries from previous years. What I did was I created a copy of this course from previous years. So already you will have a lot of content and a lot of summary, and you can build and add to that. So if I'll just make this a little bit bigger so that you can see. So this is the link to the document if you want to get there later on. I will give bonuses to those who contribute to this. If you contribute to this, please make sure that you're signed in with a Google account so that I'll know that it's you. Otherwise, it's shown as anonymous. So we will invite you to this Google Doc, and then it will give you the ability to sign in, and then you can edit this. You can also edit this anonymously. That's completely okay. If you ended up by mistake contributing to this anonymously, just add a comment and say this section I contributed. That's completely okay. And then what I do at the end of the semester, I go through the entire document and I see what is it that you contributed. And then based on this, the top 2 performers on this get 5-point addition bonus to one of the exercises, and 5 more people get 2 points, something like that. So major contribution, minor contribution, and then there's acknowledgement. And you can see all the people from last year who contributed to this. I left them in there. And then you can see that they actually did a very comprehensive summary. So you can already build on this. So if you've missed something, something was not clear, people contribute quite a bit. So first week, second week, morality, and so forth. It's quite extensive. There's like, I don't know, 68 pages in here. So if you can make this better, terrific. Some of the exercises or the discussions that we're going to do in class are going to be different from last year. So if there's something that you want to add on top of this, or if you want to contemplate on this, if you have an opinion on this, everything is welcome. Content or opinion, whatever you feel like. I would like this to be like a journey where you share information, share your opinions, and then we can make this something better than what it was last year. But this is just to show you that everything that we do is collaborative, everything is open. There's no reason for just one person to struggle with finding information and what happened in class. We should all work together in order to have the best course and the best learning experience that we can. So if we come back to this, why would you want to do this? Definitely group course summaries are better than single ones. Single people that kind of type in their own laptop miss many things. So as a group, we make sure that it's more comprehensive. Another thing is that sometimes you're not sure if something that you're summarizing is accurate or not accurate. At the end of the course, I go through the entire course summary and I make sure that it's accurate. So if it's in the course summary, you know that it went through my validation. So what you remember is not just what you thought or what you experienced, but I make sure that this is accurate. And then there's this bonus at the end as for the top contributors. All right, so a little bit about how this course will be and why this course is a little bit different than what you typically go through, perhaps. So this is the traditional way of doing class. We will have a little bit of that, but we try to do things a little bit different. Rather than me as a professor telling you, this is my truth, this is the way that things are, this is reality, you should follow that and only that, and this is the best knowledge that's out there. I think that the more important thing is having you go through a journey of learning. So I really like this book that came out about 2 or 3 years ago called Think Again by Adam Grant, who is a thinker in organizational psychology. And I really like this chapter called Rewriting the Textbook. And he says that we should be teaching students to question knowledge. So one of the things that I teach with Open Science is that we're currently going through kind of like a science reform. There's all sorts of issues with science. When they gave me this book about social psychology, you have to teach this to students, I had a lot of questions because many of the things that are in the book I already know do not replicate very well. There's some questions about what happened there. We're going to discuss a little bit some fraud cases in psychology and beyond. So I think in general, we should be very humble about what is real and what is not. And we should learn how to be able to see whether science is credible or not. So when you see a media post about vaccine, or if you see something about a certain treatment, or in your own psychological training, it's like if you come to work with a patient, how do you know that this treatment is effective or not? So I want you to adopt a scientist mindset. We will together work on real problems. We will work on real experiments. We will try and quantify what is scientific evidence and work on this together so that you won't need me to tell you this is right or this is wrong, but you'll be able to do this by yourself. So we need to make sure that we adopt the scientist mindset. Many times I will give you an experiment or we will do an experiment on ourselves. I will ask you to make a prediction before I show you the results. You will write this down as a commitment. This is my prediction. Then we will run the experiment together on ourselves. Then we will see the results, and then we will contemplate whether things matched your predictions or not. And then I will invite you to say, okay, maybe there's a different way of doing this experiment, and maybe we'll run this again and see if your prediction catches up and matches that. And I think it's very important to understand that confusion is natural, uncertainty is natural, and science is messy. So anybody who comes to you and says there's 100% this is going to work, then seriously question that person. There's no 100% in science. There's a lot of uncertainty. We're talking about statistics and probabilities. So I really think that this is very, very important. The reason why we do things in teams and why many times we'll have discussions, so it's good that we have these chairs that we can move around, and sometimes you'll have like little discussions talking about all sorts of things, is back when I was doing my postdoctorate at Maastricht University in the Netherlands. The university was founded on the principles of problem-based learning. So it's not very common at HKU, although some people are implementing this. But what's really interesting is that actually the instructors don't sit in the table. They don't lecture. They sit in the back. And the students are just given a problem, and the students have to form their goals. They need to seek out information. They need to come back and integrate, form mindsets, and then they come up with their solutions. And I was not even allowed to interfere and tell them you're right or you're wrong, you should do this, you should do that. The only thing I was supposed to do is observe from the side and occasionally make sure that those that do not speak and do not interact, that they are included. So that's the only thing that I did as a facilitator at Maastricht University. And at the beginning, I was shocked by this because it's very different from how I was trained. But then I saw the power in this, and I saw how much they learned. So they did not learn what the professor's knowledge is, they learned how to learn, which was very, very powerful. So we'll be doing a little bit of that. So in many of my courses, these are the principles. I would really like this to be as much as possible student-led, about us doing actual research, us actually conducting science hands-on. So both of the tasks that you'll have will include us looking at experiments. So actually one of the persons that sat here like you last year in the first course about doing more good and doing good better came and wanted to do a thesis with me. And then we did the first ever thesis on effective altruism and how to do more good. So you will read Manik's thesis, you will see what he did, and then you will adopt that in order to run your own experiments about how to do effective altruism from a psychological science perspective. So we'll use all the latest tools and the trends in psychological science, and we'll go through the process, scientific process, as much as possible. All the principles of open science, and then another warning about teamwork. I know that it's not for everybody. I know that some people have objections. They don't like to work with teams. Some people have inclination to, they want to take more responsibility for themselves. They really have a problem with people who are not proactive. I understand teamwork is a lot about engagement with one another, but don't worry about this. We'll help you with this. We'll help you first to form your own teams, but then if you don't have a team, we'll assist you with finding others. And then we'll facilitate the process by which you can make sure that the team works effectively. So we'll have contracts and we'll have team evaluations. There's a lot of uncertainty and guided self-learning. So last warning, I will not say this again, but it's not for everybody. Make sure that it's really for you. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. It's going to be a lot of things that are not clear, but we are here for you. I'm going to talk about how to do things on Slack. We're using Slack in order to communicate. One of the reasons why we do everything on Slack, so when you go over the syllabus, one of the things that it requires you is to understand what Slack is and to understand how we work with Slack. I really believe that everything should be public. So for example, if a student comes to me and asks me a personal question, completely okay. If the student asks me something about the course and I tell that student, but I did not tell the rest of the course, then that student has some kind of an advantage over the others. If everything is public, everybody can see what everybody is asking and they can see our reply. If somebody is asking me something and I reply, then Christy can come in and see that I've answered correctly or that it's the optimal answer, and maybe she can add on top of that and vice versa. In addition, we've seen this in other courses where students help each other. So sometimes maybe you don't need me, or perhaps I'm very busy and it takes me a few more hours. If you think you have the answer and you see somebody asking a question, just reply to them, help them out. So we're all helping out one another. We're not in a competition with each other. We all want each other to succeed. So that's the difference between working alone and working in teams. So even if things are not clear, I invite you to ask as much as possible. We will clarify things for you. There is a workload here. We try to address this every time. So every year I take down another component, but I change things. So it could be that by taking something down and making something more central, I'm actually complicating things. So it's difficult to know year by year what the course load is going to be like. But the only thing I want to tell you is that work-life balance is very important for me. It's in the syllabus. It's something that I emphasize. If you're working nights and weekends on this course, you're doing something wrong. You misunderstood me. My aim is not for you to over-invest in this. I really want you to go out, be with your friends, be with your families, go hike Hong Kong. It's a beautiful place. Really, the course is not the center of your life. If you have mental health issues, I really hope that I can help you in making sure that the course is not part of that. Come to me, tell me about your problems. I will help you. If you're over-investing and something seems very complicated to you, you've misunderstood, come and ask me. I will simplify this for you. Last year, and before that, the 2 years of the pandemic, a lot of students had a lot of issues. And we listen. So for example, last year we had 3 main components, 3 main tasks. Students came to me and they said, we're completely overloaded. There's lots of things happening in Hong Kong, so forth. This is too much for us. So to me at the beginning, when I designed this course, I thought, but this is a lot less than what happened the year before that. So how could it be that it's a higher load? And then I said, no problem. The 3rd task is optional. So it's up to you if you want to do this or not. Some students said, yeah, no problem, we can do the 3rd one. And then some of them didn't do this, and that was completely okay. So there was no disadvantage. It's completely up to you. We can discuss and negotiate everything. I really care about your well-being. I don't want you to be stressed about this course. I want us to work together to have a good experience in this course, okay? Right. Yeah. All right, so we'll go very briefly over the syllabus just to make sure that we all understand one another. If you want, you can scan this. I'll leave this here for a few seconds if you want to scan the syllabus. Okay. Yeah. All right, so this is our syllabus. Why am I not seeing the... Let's zoom a little bit. Okay, so what you can see over here is this is our URL. The OSF folder is here. The course summary is here. And then the YouTube and the weekly readings that will start from the 3rd week, I will update by next week. The 2 Zoom sessions are here. The Slack, the invitation to Slack is here. So in the course quiz, and I'll show you another link to it, there's a tutorial that Christy did on how to use Slack. So this is the way that you join this. So please install this in your mobiles or on your desktops in order to make sure that you get all the notifications. We'll do one Moodle announcement with all the links, and then I'm not going to use Moodle anymore. I feel like we need a real-time communication where everything is open and public, so you can get the best support in real time as much as possible. This is the course description, and we will aim to tackle the biggest issues in the world, leveraging state-of-the-art social psychology science to better understand all kinds of major themes and apply evidence-based solutions. Course objectives, I'll let you read this in your own time. There's reasons why you should not take this course. I think it's important to align expectations about that as well. So there's all sorts of things here that you should read about why not to take this course. Things to consider about the course, how demanding this is, that things are shared openly, and general advice notes from last year that I incorporated here. This is a little bit about my teaching philosophy, and this is about the structure and assessment. I kept the 2 tasks, so instead of 3 from last year, it's going to be 2 main tasks, each one of them about 30%. In addition to this, we'll have weekly readings, which are very, very filled with choice, very, very open. You can decide. Some of them are podcasts, some of them are games. So you can decide what kind of reading you want to do, and it shouldn't be too demanding on your time or cognition. A little bit about class engagement. So we will, starting from the 3rd week after the add drop period, we will look at class engagement, but this is only like a 5%. And then these 2 main components. And then we have the team contract and the team work report to make sure that you're working well as a team. In addition, in order to be in this class, you need to participate in the syllabus quiz and to give your classmates midterm and end-term peer evaluations. This is a little bit about the topics that we'll discuss. We'll start today and next week about morality to help us understand when we say doing more good, what is good? When we say doing good better, how to do better? What does that even mean? What is morality? How do we quantify morality? Factfulness, things that we might be wrong about in the world. Human nature, are we good or bad? Can psychology, social psychology, tell us anything about that? So what is it about altruism, helping others, pro-sociality, and can we look at this from an effectiveness perspective? Does it link to our happiness and well-being in our lives? We'll play a giving game where we give you money. So each one of you will get a certain amount of money, about $10, in order to decide which charity you want to donate this to. So we'll have a discussion on which charity that is. So all of you will be able to do something real in order to do some good in the world from a discussion in this classroom. So that's called the giving game. And from that, we'll learn a little bit about altruism. We'll discuss all sorts of things about cognitive biases, about overconfidence, about knowledge, calibration. We'll also discuss how to forecast the future. So there's some good social psychologists that are doing amazing work in this, also in effective altruism. How do we forecast the future? How do we make accurate predictions? A little bit about experimental philosophy. And then finally, issues of unethicality and why we need open science. Let me see what else. This I need to update. This is a link for the Slack channel once again. All sorts of things here. Team projects, team contracts, team reports. Everything is very elaborate. And yeah, how to do the weekly readings. So you will have either book chapters or podcast episodes or TED Talks or some games and tasks. So you will be able to choose from one of those. I'll finish the list by the end of the ad drop period. 2 team projects, won't go into this. I'll explain this a little bit later, but like I said, there's a classic experiment in effective altruism using psychological science, and Manix, a thesis student that sat here together with us in this course, did this thesis. So you can see what a thesis with me looks like if you go into these links. I'll also tell you how he did this thesis. And then finally, asking you to do something like what he did in the thesis in designing an experiment to help us test some of the effective altruism notions. Might sound a little bit vague. I know it's very, very short. Don't worry, we'll discuss everything once the ad drop period is over and we start forming our teams. So first task and then second task. So as you can see, it's very detailed, grading and all that. I will present you with some dilemmas, and I will ask you to give me your opinion about this dilemma so that we can have a discussion. I really appreciate you talking to me and perhaps talking to each other when we have this discussion. But if you feel that you don't want to, that's completely okay. At least try and participate in the Mentimeter, okay? In order to help us gain your perspective. So we'll start with a real case study. And I want you to pay very, very close attention to the video about every possible detail. And I will remind you this again and again with every video. I want you to put the scientist hat on and start having questions. So everything that is said on the man, everything that is said by the man, I want you to start thinking, what does this mean? How do we evaluate this? What would I do? What would others do? Can I look at this from a scientific perspective in order to gain some insights about this situation? So this is going to be a moral dilemma, and we need to discuss what happened and how this person acted in this moral dilemma, okay? So the question is, if you were in the same situation, will you act as Wesley, the subway hero? This is the subway hero.
On the New York City subway, it's hard enough finding someone who will give up his seat to a stranger, let alone be willing to give up his life for one.
The train was coming in like that.
It happened just 50-year-old Wesley Autry, a construction worker and Navy veteran, was standing on a subway platform with his two little girls when right in front of them, a man started having a seizure.
He kind of stumbled and over his own feet and fall backwards. I see a train coming, but the train is so close, I'm like, what do I do?
Wesley jumped onto the tracks and thought if he could just lie on top of the man, keep him from flailing, maybe the train would roll right over both of them. The clearance was exactly 21 inches. Wesley and the man, 20 and a half.
No way the train can stop before this gentleman could get him up off the tracks. So he covered him with his body and pushed him down to a point where the train wouldn't hit his head and held him down under the tracks while the train came and rolled right over the top of him.
It gave Wesley's children the scare of their young lives.
I thought he was going to get killed.
And Wesley, the scare of his, too.
I'm like talking to him, sir, you can't move. I got two kids up here looking for the father to come back. I don't know you, you don't know me, but listen, don't panic. You know, I'm here to save you.
As for the guy Wesley saved, he's 20-year-old Cameron Hollipter. And other than a few scrapes and bruises, his father says he's doing fine.
Mr. Autry's instinctive and unselfish act saved our son's life.
You know, the word hero gets thrown around a lot nowadays.
What a better way to say it to start off the new year than to save a life.
Nice to be reminded of what one really looks like. Steve Hartman, CBS News, New York.
Okay, so we're talking about Wesley here. This is already, I think this was from last year, so he's like 60 towards 70. And he's a New York City construction worker, a Navy veteran. So he served in the Army. And this is the kind of situation that he faced. So I'm really curious what your impressions are of this case. What did you see? What did you notice? What do you think of Wesley? Yes, please.
First instinct you think like he's a hero, but then you think like what if or something like what if he died and his two children are still out there or something like why like what makes him like jump down at that instant like I would be so scared.
Right. So at the very least, he's courageous. There's something to be said about this, but you, I think, highlight something that most people don't think about when they think about this situation, is that there were two kids waiting there on the side that may have lost a father due to that. Do you know that there's like a certain phenomenon in psychology that reflects what you just said? Do you have a name for this? Looking at the outcome, at the successful outcome, and based on a successful outcome saying, oh, this is amazing, where it could have gone completely sidewise. Survivorship bias, right? So sometimes we look at success stories like Bill Gates, you know, Elon Musk. If we only follow what it is that they do, we're going to be as wealthy. We're going to be billionaires. We're going to be able to do whatever. But what's the problem with this? We don't see all the people that just like Elon Musk and Bill Gates did exactly the same thing, but did not win big, right? So survivorship bias, the rate of success is actually very, very low. There could be so many different ways for this to go sideways. So terrific comment. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts about this?
I think interesting is the way that the decision that he made in terms of saving a man. Because normal people, usually it's a fight or flight reaction when you see a train coming. So I think a more reasonable, or maybe just my personal decision in the case, will be trying to save the man, but then to see there is a risk and reward ratio right there, and then if you feel like it's not that, you know, doable, you probably will retrieve yourself. But the fact that he was able to think, find a space in that very high intensity environment, and then, you know, eventually doing it, it's almost like 100 thoughts went through your mind within a very short period of time.
Right. So a few very interesting things that you raised. First of all, it seems like there is almost an immediate instinct about when we see somebody in trouble and we realize there's a problem, what is our basic instinct? We would ideally like to help. At least in this situation, it seems like there's something like that. But then something starts to happen. We have milliseconds in order to address this. Should I take the risk? And against risks, you mentioned rewards, right? So in this case, when you mentioned reward, what did you mean?
So maybe you can link back to the kind of background that he came from, maybe because he was serving for the country, so he had this kind of patriotic mindset,
Right.
The protector kind of mindset. So maybe that's why he was so persistent in saving this man. But I think rewards can come in many forms, self-actualization, or or pretty much empathy. Coming in many ways, but there's a personal reality.
Okay, yeah. So more in terms of how he thinks about himself, whether he's able to actualize the way that he sees himself. Some people can be very cynical. Maybe they say, maybe he wanted the attention from the TV cameras afterward, or maybe he wanted some prize that he might get or might not get. Maybe he wanted to be the hero. There's all kinds of rewards, and we can decide how cynical we want to be about this. But on one side, we have the risks. We might lose our lives, right? On the other side, we have a reward. And of course, there's the actual reward of a person being alive, right? Very good, thank you. Anything else about this case? What do you think you would do in this situation? How many of you think that you would jump and try to save the man? Not many? No? How many of you are sure? How many of you are sure that you would not do this? Quite a few of you. Yeah, I completely understand. It's interesting. Why do you think most of us decide that we're not Navy veterans, right? But what is the real reason why we would not do this for another person? Why don't we do this? Why wouldn't we risk ourselves in order to help another person? Yes, please. We value our lives. Yeah. Good. So two things. First is that our lives are very important to us. And the second is that there is a lot of uncertainty. And here it seems like very, very risky. If we would know 100% that we would be able to save, no problem, right? Why wouldn't we? We'll come back to that. But if there's some kind of an uncertainty, then we start to weigh probabilities, right? So in this case, what probability would you like in order to be able to save the person? 100%. 99 will not do. 100%, right? 98? Sure, okay. So where would you put this? Yeah?
I also think the fact that he was a veteran.
Yeah.
So maybe like in his service period, he was trained by the army. In this kind of dangerous situation, his first reaction should be saving a person instead of not saving the person, because we kind of value our own lives for our own reality. But then if you join the army, there's going to be a chronic period of training, being altruistic, sacrificing yourself. Just the army. So maybe his condition.
Yeah. Very good points. So it also depends on who the person is and what kind of background they have. Are they more altruistic? So maybe in the army they had the training where you look out for your mate, right? You make sure that everybody survives, because as a squad, you need to survive together. If everybody looks out for their own. But I want to go back to what you said, and then to go back to what you said. It's not only the risk for myself, right? It's also the risk for others. So what would happen if the person would be unsuccessful? Maybe he doesn't care about his life because he was trained as a veteran, but what would happen to the kids? What is the risk to the kids? They're losing their father. What would that mean for them? So instead of losing just one person who was at risk, we're losing another person, and there's the entire ecosystem, a family is going to be devastated by this, right? Just the heart attack that they got just looking at their father jumping in front of the train, that's already trauma for life, PTSD, they need to go some therapy, all that. There was something you wanted to say? Yeah, psychological damage for sure, yes?
Like, that he chose to save the man he don't know.
Yeah.
And then they put his daughters behind like what if
very good.
The daughters
right. So another very important aspect to consider is that this is a complete stranger. And he's got his two kids just next to him. And to many of us, we have these biases in ourselves where we tend to emphasize our in-group, right? Especially our kids, especially our loved ones. They're very important for us. So when you think about this, at the beginning, we have this inclination to say a hero. It's amazing. He saved the day. But survivorship bias, all sorts of other things, his kids, the risk, the uncertainty, all sorts of other factors come into this. So we ask ourselves, is he a hero? What is the right thing to do in this case, right? So we appreciate people. We hail people like that as heroes. And I completely understand this. There is a functional role to this, right? But we really need to consider things carefully. So I think this is a relatively clear-cut case study. I'm going to show you another case study, but first I just want to check. I don't know if you've had the chance to do this with the Mentimeter, so I'll just go and have a look at this if I can find it. Yeah. So no, it wouldn't that make sense? 4-1, not sure. Okay, very good, but nobody said yes. All right. That's yeah. So the next question is, will you save the baby? So this is the death of Wang Yue in 2011. This is a CNN reporting of that.
A security camera in this bustling hardware market caught the accidents on tape. The footage shows the little girl wandering in front of a white van. She's hit, run over, and run over again by another vehicle. The video was posted online, outraging the public. But these are the scenes that sparked nationwide soul-searching. Over a dozen pedestrians, motorists, and bikers pass by the bleeding child and do nothing.
The hit-and-run accidents happened here in an alleyway near Wang's father's hardware store. She lay on the ground for about 10 minutes before a Good Samaritan moved her here to safety.
Chen Shanmei was that unexpected hero, a street scavenger who stepped in to save a life, now a symbol of understated decency, a quality many fear is increasingly rare in a nation obsessed with moving up the economic ladder. I didn't think of anything at the time, she told local reporters. I just wanted to save the girl. Chen's neighbors told us she appeared overwhelmed by her instant celebrity and has since gone home to the countryside. Granny Chen represents the best part of human nature, Chu says. I thank her for that.
Wang Yue is still very much in critical condition. Her mother says that she has some sensation in her lower body, but she has very little brain activity.
Despite the concerns of China's declining marine.
So we're going to stop at this here. Yeah. So if you were in this situation, would you save the baby? Let's reflect on this. So what did you see in this video? How do you compare these two cases? Is it similar? Is it completely different? What does it say about human nature?
I will save the baby. First case is within a very short time period, and the man will risk his life to save another stranger. But in this case, you don't need to risk your life to save the baby. And it's within a long time period, so you can just make rational decision under this scenario.
Right. So very good factors differentiating between the two cases. So here we have a lot more time to contemplate things, right? There's no self-risk, there's no harm whatsoever. The only thing is that you need to notice this, and then you need to alert the authorities for this, or maybe take the baby out of harm's way in order to make sure that it's not run over by yet another car, right? So very, very good observations. And then you said that in your case, you believe that if you would see the baby, you would help the baby. Let's do like a quick, how many of you think that if you would go next to a baby in the street, you'll save the baby, or at least alert the authorities? Many of you? Yes? Okay. So I think for us, it's very important to think of ourselves as somebody who would do this, right? As somebody who would help others. But I think it's also important for us to think or contemplate situations where here in Hong Kong, we went next to somebody who seemed like they were going through something. Did we check? Did we see that everything is okay? Are the people really able to notice this? Do we always notice this? Perhaps if we do this in Hong Kong, but then when we visit I don't know, the US, and we see a homeless person in the street, which is quite rare in Hong Kong, but it's there all the time. There's a big crisis right now in San Francisco with a lot of homeless people there. Do people help? If they don't help, why don't they help? Right? And this relates to a lot of classic findings in social psychology that we'll talk about a little bit later, called the bystander effect. Does it happen? Does it not happen? So we'll get to discuss all of that. Good, great observations. Anything else about this? What else did you notice? Please.
I'm not sure about the metro instance, but are there many people witnessing the incident happening? But for this one, I think the area is quite public, and many people can see the incident, like someone is lying down, but then people will feel like, oh, maybe someone else will take care of it. It won't need to be me, because there are many people passing by. I think that's one of the most critical reason for that.
Yeah, shared responsibilities. So maybe it's not my responsibility. There's lots of other people who are seeing this. Perhaps somebody else will take to this. There's all sorts of ways for us to rationalize, to tell ourselves that it's okay for us not to attend the baby, right? Can we think of situations where we notice something wrong happening in front of us and we do not act, we do not do something about it? When does this happen? So shared responsibility is one instance. Can we think of a concrete situation?
I think like in the first one, when you might also get in harm's way or you get involved in something negative.
Right.
Like if someone is beating someone in the street and you want to stop it, but you don't want to put yourself in danger. Or like when you were talking about helping someone in Hong Kong, I was just thinking about how people are kind of racist sometimes. So I would not go out of my way every single time maybe to help like everyone. Like, of course, I could offer, but then sometimes like you're a little worried that you will like, there's something negative that will happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
the way that people will react to you.
Yeah, or they'll actually react badly and you look like the person who did something and, like become kind of.
So maybe by interfering, you're also taking responsibility for that, or at least people will link you to what has just happened to it. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, any other reflections on this? Yes, please. Yes. Yes, exactly, right. It's happening in Hong Kong occasionally. Yeah. Right. 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 Yeah. So the personal cost that we might have, or the way that people would link us to this situation, and what would be the ongoing costs for us, or harm perhaps to us from this interference, is something that's on our mind, and that's really differentiating between these two scenarios. If we take what you both have said, if we take away all of the costs, let's say that you don't have any potential harm, or there's no cost in you intervening, what would be a reason for us? Why would people not intervene? Because we've seen a lot of people here that just walked by, right? They didn't notice this. So you raised a very good point about shared responsibility. That's one good point. What would be other reasons for this to happen? Yes, please.
One reason that may not be applying in everywhere, that would be not breaking the conformity. For example, in some institutions, when you put on the uniform, then you have to obey the hidden rules.
Okay.
You don't want to break the game. Or something.
So the social norms here would be what? Why would people?
But for my example, that would be the separate prison experiment.
Okay.
For example, in enclosed environment, for example, in a psychiatric hospital, the door is locked and you put on the uniform, and you would love to follow the games.
Yeah.
For example, when your co-workers make a bill patient, you may not stand out to protect the patient.
Understand. So in this situation here, what did you notice about the formation of social norms or conformity? What did you see here? So it could be that there's something about the context where they're thinking that perhaps this is all a hoax, or something is out to get them, right? Or perhaps there's something about by intervening, you're putting yourself in some kind of potential harm with, I don't know, accountability, government, whatever that may be. But there's something about the context that perhaps may complicate this, that we don't understand, right? Yeah, good points. So if you want to say something? Yeah, please.
Maybe because when they're like facing a situation, maybe like there is a person lying down,
yeah,
and there are already a lot of people passing by, and we are not the first person seeing him like that. Then we will have a mental shortcut that it is a normal, like rather normal situation. Maybe it's just a drunk guy, and everyone knows that. That I don't know about this person, so I thought he's ill.
Yeah.
So when in that situation, we maybe just see a girl lying down, and we already saw a lot of people passes by, and we will immediately thought maybe it is not anything that is special or anything that is bad happening.
Right.
So we will just maybe sometimes we don't know.
Yeah, good point. So it's a little bit linked to formation of a norm of sorts, right? You observe something, nobody else is acting, right? So perhaps somebody already checked on this and it is okay. Perhaps I don't need to worry about this. Perhaps it's a hoax of some sort. I don't really know, right? So if we contemplate these, we think of this kind of situation. If we look at this, I think most of us, big majority, like lean to, yes, we would do something about this, right? Okay, so if we take this to a situation that we can think about, let's say here, and this is a classic philosophical dilemma, perhaps you've heard about this, the girl in the pond, but we can, let's say that we know how to swim, because this is what's expected here in this scenario. Let's say that we're walking next to the harbor here in Hong Kong, right? And we are on our way to an interview. We're wearing our best suit. It's a $1,000 suit, and somebody is waiting for us in the interview in order for us to interview for the job of our dreams, right? And then we see that a little girl fell into the harbor, and she needs our help in order to survive. And the question is, will you jump and save the girl, despite the $1,000 suit that will be ruined, despite the interview being lost? What would most people answer in this situation? Yes, why yes?
Value our lives, our life, more than money, most of the time.
So let's take this statement. I love this statement. It's a very good statement. We value lives more than money, right? Does this always hold true? Does it have any limitations to it? When do we value money more than we value lives?
When it's a short-term thing, like
short-term.
So this is an instant consequence, whether we save her or not. But for example, if we are working for a really hectic working environment for money, but we sacrifice our health for that, that's a long-term effect. And we know that we know it's detrimental for health, but we value money over life.
Great. Terrific. So I really like this, because as scientists, when we put the scientist hat on and we start to ask questions and people give us a response, we really want to understand what is it that they mean. So for example, a sentence like, we value life over money. We need to try and disentangle this. At what point? Here, the money means $1,000 and it means short term, right? So you've already contextualized this. Now we try to understand, when does this not hold? Let's say, for example, this was $100 million. Would people come in to save? I don't know who wears a $100 million suit, but let's say there's a person that does. And this will cost them $100 million. Will people still jump and save the girl? Probably not. And then you start asking, wait, so what is the range? So first of all, we can't come with big statements that something will always work. We need to contextualize this, right? So short-term, long-term, very good. Costs, to what extent? You can think about what is the number that you have in mind that would be okay for you as a HKU student, for you, for your families, other people that depend on this money, right? What other factors on whether we should intervene or not? Yes?
First, I think this makes I'm already ready for this interview. So
Okay.
if the company think that's going to stop me, because I was late because I was saving someone, I don't think this company is doing safety at all. And if I save this girl, it can be good things working later. It's very practical for me. Yeah.
Okay, good point. Terrific. You wanted to say something?
It would depend on the person's situation as well. Like if the person is well off, and if the person is someone who can afford to probably get this fix or buy another one, then he would also probably consider saving the girl.
Okay. Yeah.
And if the person is what's that economically disadvantaged situation, then would be prioritize their situation because in their thinking they also more disadvantaged.
Yeah, interesting. So first we have demographics, perhaps a different social economic status, and then we have values, or, we don't want to work in a company that would not take us for a job because of a very good excuse like this, right? So we have all sorts of personal, individual differences between people that might affect this. Yes?
I really want to say, I think it really matters if there are people around.
Matters if there are people around?
For example, there's no one around and you're like rushing for something. There's like a hired chance to think that, oh, no one will see me, it's okay. Maybe the next one who passed by will say it.
Yeah.
Then it also depends on, I think, whether the girl in fact one is like shouting for help.
Yeah.
Because if it's like half, like it's like not shouting for help, it kind of, when it's shouting for help, it kind of makes you think that you should save her. And then I also think like if there's a bunch of people, like maybe 4 to 5, and then one is an elderly and then one is a pregnant woman and other is a girl, and you're the like, for example, only men there, and you will like feel like this is your job.
Yeah, maybe there's a better swimmer, right? They'll do a better job, right? There's a little bit about the shared responsibility. Who needs to attend to this? How many people are around? So yeah, very, very good point. One more before we continue. Yeah.
If I'm suffering from guilt, if I know this girl died of me, organizing the job or the school over like the life, and I know like for the rest of my life, I will be like suffering from the guilt.
Yeah, I like this. This is a good introduction to our next slide. Aside from guilt, what other negative feelings would we have if we would not save the girl? What other things come to mind? Regret. Yeah, good. What else? Anything else? Sorry? Angry, for sure. Yeah. What would happen if your parents would hear about the situation and then they will see that you did not help? Sorry? Scared. Scared of parents? Yeah, I like that. Scared.
Guilt.
Yeah, guilt.
That's
good.
Maybe it's too much of testament to you, but I think humans are more driven by negative emotions than positive emotions. So I think the gratification of saving someone might be rewarding afterwards, but at the moment, I think the primary source of that motivation.
Right. So sometimes we help people not because of the good feeling, the warm glow inside that comes from helping them, but in order to avoid guilt, regret, shame, perhaps about all that. Good. So what do you think? Where am I going to? What you've seen 2 cases already, right? What's going to be the where am I going with this? Any clue? Yeah. So if you would have to put up the next slide in order to ask something of the students here, what would you ask? What kind of scenario would we provide?
How much would you sacrifice? How much would you choose to sacrifice for others?
Yeah.
Morality.
Morality, yeah.
Decisive factors that moral actions.
Yeah, very good. All right, so what's the point of these scenarios? Why do we need to ask this? So Peter Singer who's still alive and well and very, very active, and he's considered to be the philosophical mind that started the effective altruism movement, says this. If you're like most people, you're probably saying to yourself right now, I wouldn't have walked past that child. This is Wang Yue. I would have stopped to help. Perhaps you would have, but remember that, as we have already seen, 5.4 million children under 5 years old died in 2017, with a majority of these deaths being from preventable, treatable causes, right? Here's just one case described by a man in Ghana to a researcher in the World Bank. Take the death of this small boy this morning, for example. The boy died of measles, right? We all know that this could have been cured at the hospital. It's a very curable disease. But the parents had no money, and so the boy died a slow and painful death, not of measles, but out of poverty, right? So we all see the person that's in front of us. We all see the girl that fell to the harbor or the girl that was run over. But right now, they're not in front of us, but around the world, there's a lot of children that are dying, and we can do something to help them. We have, our families or us, we have some money to give them, right? But we don't help all the other people that are so far away, that are very distant from us in other places in the world, right? So Peter Singer was the philosopher that said, we say, obviously, 100% we will help with this child. Why don't we help with that child? What makes us think that we're not morally accountable for these other children? So would you donate right now $1,000 to save a child in South America? So this is the third scenario that I want you to think about. What is the difference between this one and the drowning girl in a pond? Why would we donate to that? And what would we do in this situation? What are some of the differences? Yes?
I think that's probably the major difference.
What do you mean?
So humans are very sensory. So we see something, there's a direct impact, and that drives us to make a decision. I think, again,
how is this as a sensory?
Now, if I've seen it, you ask me, will I donate the money? Yes, probably, because now I'm being put on the spot, and then there is the visual effect, or maybe other kinds of effect that's hitting me right now, which drives me to make the decision. But then, if I think from this, like there's 64 million children dying like this, I can't save every single one. So mechanically, we have this mental process of like kind of blocking out the things that are beyond our control. And morality is of limited mental energy as well. We devote that to people that we can have.
Well, a lot of things that you raise, and I would want us with the scientist hat to focus on the factors. So let's try and point out the factors. First thing that you said, numbers, right? Here we have one girl, but here she seems to be part of a statistic, right? 64 million, 5.7 million. There's a big group. With the one person, I feel like maybe I can help them. My $1,000 will help that person. But when we divide this by millions, actually my ability to impact is very, very small. And any other factors that come into mind in this? Yes, please.
I think also one contributing factor would be like the urgency that we perceive.
Urgency, yes. This is in front of us. Does this seem like urgent to you or not?
Maybe not as urgent as.
Not as urgent? Okay, right. So there's something about the sheer number. There is something about the responsibility that I feel, and there's something about the urgency. Any other factors? Yes?
The obligation.
Obligation?
When you are walking past the running bell and she might yell for help, and then you are the only one and you are in the spot.
Right.
And you are responsible.
Good.
But for those children in South America, then there are a lot of factors contributing to their dismay, and we are more tending to feel like it is not exactly our responsibility or
They have their own people to take care of that, their own government, their own rich people that might have that money, right? Okay. You wanted to say something?
Maybe like to in-group and out-group bias, whereas
In-group, out-group? Yeah.
Yeah, like we're in the scenario before. We would see the girl as our own community, that like you might get some more recognition from your community by saving that girl, whereas this girl here is further away, and like maybe we might associate more negative. We're more likely to associate negative connotations to people from other communities.
Yeah, so a number of factors. You mentioned distance, and you mentioned whether she's considered as part of our in-group. Perhaps if she is a distant family, like, oh, I must help, right? But if she's distant and she's a stranger, she's like, she's out of my responsibility. She's so distant. She's not part of my in-group. Perhaps even I have an issue with the group that she's associated with, right? Lots of very interesting factors to raise. We'll do one more, yes? Effectiveness?
I are sure that that $1,000 was worth it.
Yeah, linked to the certainty that we talked about before. Yeah. Oh, I like this. Yeah.
That $1,000 may not just work for you.
Right. So the distance is not only about emotional distance, but also the distance has some challenges about how do I really know that if I put the $1,000, if I donate this, that it will help the person, right? So what kind of thoughts, let's say that we care about this person over there in South America. Let's say that we wanted to save that person. What kind of worries do you have giving $1,000 for it to really make it all the way to the end? What kind of things can go wrong in the
where the money goes, because
where the money goes?
Charities and so many people claiming to help.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of them do, but then you don't know what channels it's going through. If number one, they're legitimate, and even if they are, you don't know if they're fully maximizing the value of the money.
Right.
As compared to like if you yourself were to spend it on a child.
Yeah, so really it comes back to the effectiveness. It's like, do we really know how this thing is being implemented? Is it really going to the girl, or somebody else is taking something on the side? Will it really go to the right kind of cause? If I would be able to tell you with high certainty, 100%, that your $1,000 will go immediately to that person to save their lives with nobody in the middle, and ensuring, giving you receipts and guarantees that your $1,000, would that solve the problem, or there's some other factors? You don't think which part? It will not solve the problem, okay?
There's a certain amount of desensitization because we know that around the world there's like millions of people die of poverty. So it's like,
all right,
you know, you want to see the impact with your own eyes if you're actually spending that much money. It's like, when do I stop?
Right. So this relates back to the numbers. You wanted to say something?
I really thought that if the $1,000 could change the whole environment. This little child, she lived in a very smart environment.
Yeah.
Maybe something to do with her further development. And I really thought if my money could help her, help she to grow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this is interesting. Let's build on this a little bit. What do you think you can do with 1,000? Let's say that you go there personally. You want to see things. You go to South America. You find this girl. What do you think is going to happen with $1,000? Sorry. Some supplies, some food. Yeah. What dangers is she facing? Look at the environment. What things do we care about in order to save her life? So obviously she needs food. Anything else she needs? So sorry, say hygiene. Yeah, what does hygiene mean in this case? Right, sanitation. Yeah, a clean, healthy environment. Yes. Sorry, education. Yeah. To lift her out from this situation. Right. Yeah. So with $1,000, we can do a little bit with hygiene. We can do a little bit with food, right? You know, for how long? What can we do? Just imagine. I don't know how much you know about South America, and you have different economies up and down. But let's say a very a developing economy, right? What do you think you can do with 1,000 US? How long can you sustain? Can you help the person? What is the highest impact thing that you can do with the 1,000 US in order to save the person's life? What is the biggest threat that she's facing?
Give her a safe place to live first.
Buy her a house, or what do you mean?
Yeah. Give her a house. And, yeah, just send her to the hospital to check how.
Yeah. What are the biggest threats? Yes?
I would just buy a lot of condoms.
Condoms?
Go send it to the country, stop having children.
To stop having children. She's a little bit young for condoms.
Yes.
For others, to not create. Okay.
Others coming, living in the same environment as she does.
That's an interesting point. Let's talk about this. I feel like we want to talk about this, not because it's just condoms. It's like, let's say that we bought condoms. What do you think will happen with the condoms?
But I think we also need education. Maybe think.
Education. So condoms don't come by themselves, right? What do you need in addition to condoms? Education, sex education, anything else?
And also the cultural stuff.
Culture.
Why they are giving birth to many children and giving birth that much is because of culture. It's one of the big point. But it's really hard to change as a foreigner.
Yeah. Yeah, and we don't know if she really comes from a culture where they have a lot of babies. Maybe they have less babies than Hong Kong. We don't really know. There's lots of things that we want to know before we talk about this. But even if this is the issue and we give them condoms, there's a lot of things to consider about whether this will be implemented and whether this implementation will actually solve something at the end, right? Yes? About
if everyone don't even know what they're gonna do with the money, why are we donating the money in the first place?
Okay, yeah. We want to know how the money is used, right? We want to know how it's implemented to save a person's life. So let's try and think about this for a second. What would be the highest impact way to use 1,000 US with this girl? Yes?
We think like sending her to a developed country to like the best way to save her own baby, but then it's
Okay, that's lots of assumptions there. Maybe she wants to be with her parents. You're doing a lot of interventions in that environment. Yeah, lots of things to think about in this comment, but good. Okay, let's put this aside for now. Let's focus on things that are very practical and doable and cheap that we can do within the 1,000 US to change things. Yes, please. Vaccination. Good. Why is that important? Right. Things we take for granted, which protect us, which have very high efficiency, right? Polio, we've been able to practically eradicate polio, but then it's on a rise in all sorts of places where they don't have vaccination. So vaccination is a very, very good point. And some vaccinations are relatively very cheap, right? Very affordable. Anything else? What other high impact things do we have? Yes? Sorry? Insurance for what? Insurance for?
For her. Like,
life insurance?
Yeah, like medical care, like anything like that. Because like we do some kind of investment related stuff. Because I don't think she needs $1,000 on the spot. Because if I buy supplies temporary. So what about if let's say I just save the money, help with the deposit bank, and then there will be more money coming.
So thinking not just about the short term, but the longer term, maybe not all the money used at once. Maybe first vaccinate, save a little bit, give her some food, and then save the rest. Okay, good point. You wanted to say something?
Yeah. There's some to do some maybe promotion of advertisement, so we can bring even more money. It would be able to maybe change the environment more thoroughly in some short term.
So it's a little bit related to more investment or thinking longer term instead of just this one immediate problem, right? Until 6:20. Oh wow, and we didn't take a break even. Okay. All right. So let me just because I want to introduce you to Peter Singer. So I will show you how Peter Singer talks about this. I really value the discussion that we had here because we raised a lot of issues that effective altruism has been battling with. So effective altruism, I'll show you Peter Singer, but it basically started from hedge fund managers that came across millions of dollars. It's almost like winning the lottery. And then they said, we want to invest in a charity. We want to do the most good that we can with our hundreds of millions of dollars. Where should we put this into? So they started asking around and people said things like, what would you do with hundreds of millions? Red Cross, Save the Child, there's a bunch of charities that we think of immediately. But when they contacted them, just like you said, what would you do with my money? I'm giving you $1 million now. What would you do with this? Turns out that many charities do not know how to answer this question, right? So there's lots of questions that we want to address in this. So a group of people, based on the principles of what Peter Singer is going to talk about, created this movement of effective altruism. So Peter Singer, just to summarize this, not a young man anymore, but very, very prominent, also in academia, if you care about this kind of measures. 2 amazing books. One came out recently, a renewed version about him talking about animal welfare. So we're not just talking about humans. He's also a devoted vegan. He cares about things very deeply, also about the welfare of other sentient beings. Inspirational stuff. I highly recommend this. It's available as a free audiobook, and some of it will be in our readings, so you can catch up on that. So I want to introduce you to Peter Singer and the effective altruism movement, and then I will have a few moments to discuss this before we head out.
There were other people who walked past Wang Yu, and a second van ran over her legs before a street cleaner raised the alarm. She was rushed to hospital, but it was too late. She died. I wonder how many of you, looking at that, said to yourselves just now, I would not have done that. I would have stopped to help. Raise your hands if that thought occurred to you. As I thought, that's most of you. And I believe you, I'm sure you're right. But before you give yourself too much credit, look at this. UNICEF reports that in 2011, 6.9 million children under 5 died from preventable poverty-related diseases. UNICEF thinks that that's good news because the figure has been steadily coming down from 12 million in 1990. That is good. But still, 6.9 million is 19,000 children dying every day. Does it really matter that we're not walking past them in the street? Does it really matter that they're far away? I don't think it does make a morally relevant difference. The fact that they're not right in front of us, the fact, of course, that they're of a different nationality or race, none of that seems morally relevant to me. What is really important is, can we reduce that death toll? Can we save some of those 19,000 children dying every day? And the answer is, yes, we can. Each of us spends money on things that we do not really need. You can think what your own habit is, whether it's a new car, a vacation, or just something like buying bottled water when the water that comes out of the tap is perfectly safe to drink. You could take the money you're spending on those unnecessary things and give it to this organization, the Against Malaria Foundation, which would take the money you had given and use it to buy nets like this one to protect children like this one. And we know reliably that if we provide nets, they're used and they reduce the number of children dying from malaria, just one of the many preventable diseases that are responsible for some of those 19,000 children dying every day. Fortunately, more and more people are understanding this idea, and the result is a growing movement, effective altruism. It's important because it combines both the heart and the head. The heart, of course, you felt the empathy for that child. But it's really important to use the head as well to make sure that what you do is effective and well-directed. And not only that, but also I think reason helps us to understand that other people, wherever they are like us, that they can suffer as we can, that parents grieve for the deaths of their children as we do, and that just as our lives and our well-being matters to us, it matters just as much to all of these people. So I think reason is not just some neutral tool to help you get whatever you want. It does help us to put perspective on our situation. And I think that's why many of the most significant people in effective altruism have been people who've had backgrounds in philosophy or economics or math. And that might seem surprising because a lot of people think philosophy is remote from the real world. Economics, we're told, just makes us more selfish. And we know that math is for nerds. But in fact, it does make a difference. And in fact, there's one particular nerd who has been a particularly effective altruist.
I'm going to skip Bill Gates, the nerd, and I'm going to skip to people more like us. I can just, come on, you can do it. Yeah.
That's fine if you're a billionaire, you can have that kind of impact. But if I'm not, what can I do? So I'm going to look at 4 questions that people ask that maybe stand in the way of them giving. They worry how much of a difference they can make, but you don't have to be a billionaire. This is Toby Ord. He's a research fellow in philosophy at the University of Oxford. He became an effective altruist when he calculated that with the money that he was likely to earn throughout his career, an academic career, he could give enough to cure 80,000 people of blindness in developing countries and still have enough left for a perfectly adequate standard of living. So Toby founded an organization called Giving What We Can to spread this information, to unite people who want to share some of their income, and to ask people to pledge to give 10% of what they earn over their lifetime to fighting global poverty. Toby himself does better than that. He's pledged to live on £18,000 a year, that's less than $30,000, and to give the rest to those organizations. And yes, Toby is married and he does have a mortgage. This is a couple.
He gives 3 more examples of that. I just want to say that this is a revolutionary idea, and at the beginning when I listened to this, I had a lot of very strong reactions on this. On one side, I have admiration for people who pledge 10 to 50%, Warren Buffett, 95% of what they're giving, everything to charity. On the other side, I had very strong objections about why I'm not doing this, right? Because of all the things that we discussed. But I really like that effective altruism forces us or invites us to try and think what is preventing us from this, and then thinking about what is it that we can do in order to think about this in a more scientific way, so that we can feel good with ourselves, we can have a good quality of life, and then we can help all these other people. So I'm going to leave it to you to watch this. It's going to be one of the readings if you want to see all of it. It keeps on going till the end, but we don't have a lot of time. But Toby Ord is one of the inspirational minds behind this effective altruism. And most of the big names in effective altruism are 20 years old, 30 years old. They started this when they were they were just students. They were very young at university. So aside from Peter Singer, who seems a little bit older, he's the philosopher, most of the people in effective altruism are actually very young. I'm considered old in effective altruism. Many of them are just like you. And the last thing I want to show you, which is also going to be in some of the teams, is that we have a lot of tools in order to see can we pledge anything? Can we give anything? If how much do we have compared to everybody else? So I think as a beginning, we can calculate how rich we are. So there's a tool here that you can come here, you can click on this, and then let's say that you graduate from HKU and you earn 20,000 a month, 240,000 a year. You can calculate how are you compared to other people in the world. And just by being a graduate of HKU, living in a society like Hong Kong, you're already at the top 3% of the richest people in the world compared to many others. So what would happen if you would donate this? I would say like 5%, not even like 10%. What would happen? You could fund all sorts of things like malaria nets and medicine and vaccinations and all of that to save around half a life each year. The more you earn over time, the more you can donate and do this. But in this course, we're going to discuss other ways of contributing. As scientists, we can actually do even more than that. We can help not just with our salaries, we can help with the way that we approach something. So he talked about economists, he talked about philosophers, mathematicians, but even psychologists have a role to play. So what we're going to do here in this course, we're going to talk about these difficult issues. We're going to try and quantify what does it mean to do good? What is our moral obligation? What is the way for us to increase our impact in order to do more good and then to do good better? Okay. So I'm really looking forward to discussing this with you. I love the discussion that we had today. Very good points. Ran a little bit over time, so I'm sorry that we didn't have a break, but I'm looking forward to having more of that next week. So thank you. See you next week.